Excellent. Everybody, thank you for joining us today for the Empowering Radiologists at the Point of Interpretation, the RSNA Ventures and Rad AI Partnership webinar. This webinar marks a major milestone, RSNA Ventures' first ever industry partnership as a newly formed organization. And we'll be covering how this partnership is focused on advancing patient care, strengthening radiologist support, and demonstrating innovation in action directly integrated with that point of care, which is so very important in radiology. I am pleased to be joined today by Dr. Adam Flanders. He is the RSNA Board Liaison for Information Technology. He is also a professor of radiology and rehabilitation medicine and vice chair of imaging informatics at Thomas Jefferson University in Philadelphia. Dr. Melissa Davis is an associate professor and vice chair of medical informatics in the Department of Radiology and Biomedical Imaging at Yale University. Joe Giuffrida is the Chief Operation Officer at ARA Health Specialists in Asheville, North Carolina. Dr. Davis, could you tell us a little bit about your role and your specific areas of interest in radiology?
Sure, and thank you so much for having me on the panel. I know it's going to be an exciting discussion today. So as most of my role centers around the implementation of new tools within our department and across our health system as it pertains to radiology. So I spend a fair bit of time assessing new tools, validating new tools, implementing them, and then working around post-implementation progress. So that's it pretty much in a nutshell.
Excellent. Joe?
Yeah, hi. Good to meet everybody here. Yeah, Joe Giuffrida, Chief Operations Officer, ARA Health Specialist. I too seek solutions for our radiologists and partner with great supporting vendors like Rad AI and looking for advancements in efficiency for our radiologists. Obviously, I spend a lot of time in recruitment and retention of radiologists, and I see these as opportunities to do both, to recruit and retain, and to also develop some improved efficiency in a very difficult time to hire and just volume growth that is like we've never seen before. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a challenge in the industry right now. Dr. Flanders,
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
uh, could you provide a
Oh,
couple words in your role?
well, besides being chief morale officer around here, no, my role is probably very similar to Dr. Davis's, but I kind of view myself as the lead imaging informaticist for medical imaging across our organization, and also primarily serve as an interface between all the other chief medical informatics officers, because we have many of them. We have 32 hospitals here, as well as a liaison with IT and information services to try and figure out, again, like what Dr. Davis does, figure out the best way to use all of our applications across the organization, create uniformity in our processes, and hopefully increase efficiency and accuracy and make our radiologists happy. So I feel like I'm the, I'm the person here to make sure that the radiologists are very happy when they interface with the technology.
That's awesome. All three of you serve a very important role in enabling consistent access, but also safe and fully integrated into the workflow access as well. Dr. Flanders, could you share a couple words on RSNA Ventures? What y'all are looking to accomplish, and this initial partnership.
Oh yeah, well, for us, this was really exciting because we had never actually did anything quite like this before. But it's RSNA Ventures is really a wholly owned subsidiary of RSNA. It's not a separate thing, but it allows us to give us. It is a separate thing owned by RSNA, but it's under the auspices of RSNA. But it gives us some latitude to do things that we've always wanted to do, which is to kind of look towards being directly involved in innovating great products for our membership, which essentially, of course, are radiologists, which, which in turn will provide better services for our patients. So the goal is really, yeah, to kind of look for new and novel ways to innovate, maybe develop some new technologies. And the thought was, what we should really do is collaborate with existing companies, particularly ones that are relatively agile, are very cool, very very hip to to looking to developing new products. And so that's why we were really excited to work with Rad AI because you kind of fit our requirements right off the bat.
We're definitely hip, so I appreciate that
Yeah.
call out. When I think about this partnership, what I think is really impactful is the ability to deliver the trusted information of RSNA at a scale in terms of point of care that's never achieved before. So taking the robust journal articles, scientific literature, making it actionable, and then integrating it directly into the radiologist workflow. So we were really excited, from our perspective, when we were approached for this partnership, because of that ability to, ultimately build a for radiologist by radiologist type workflow that can seamlessly integrate. I'm going to share, a couple words about RadAI, and then I'll actually give a demonstration here of the diagnostic support companion inside that point of care workflow. At RadAI, we are, the leading artificial intelligence solution inside radiology, touching over 60% of radiologists in the United States, across thousands of different centers and groups. We have a very significant background in AI, being the first generative AI type solution released way back in 2019, long before it was called Gen AI. That's our impression solution, and it's really where we got started, which is automating that bottom third of the radiology report, so that the radiologists are able to work through the day a bit faster with less cognitive load. Based on request, we expanded into a complete reporting solution, which is what makes this partnership particularly dynamic, because that complete reporting solution provides the ability for the radiologist to naturally interact with this type of information, using AI to enable the entire flow. So with that, I'll actually give a view of what it looks like. This is going to be our reporting interface that you're going to see in a second here. So the user interface right there. This is a previously dictated report. I don't want to waste everybody's time going through a dictation right now. But if you look here, focal nodular hyperplasia was already underlined as part of that dictation process. From there, the radiologist is able to click on it, use a voice command to interact with it. And there's a couple different ways it can go. You can either view differentials or ask the companion a little bit more detailed information. This is what the differentials view looks like. And if you look at this information, this is relevant studies, relevant articles, codified, again, made very actionable for point of care interaction for the radiologist, and put directly into the view of the reporting solution. All of this is what's powered by RSNA Ventures. This information is coming from those high impact trusted journal articles. You can also add a citation to the relevant article that was being referenced by you as a radiologist during your interpretation. All of those differentials are right there. The markings, the relevant pieces, within the interface, really easy to interact with and increase that confidence of differential diagnosis that the radiologists go through. Now, the next piece is a bit more of a robust integration. This is looking at not just can I see differentials and understand what's going on, but leveraging the companion, which knows the context of the report. So this knows that there was a liver injury already documented within the report, but leverage the companion to ask about different information. So from here, you can use a voice command, or you could, of course, dictate something. In this case, we're going to really quickly click on that because that was already brought up as one of the suggestions. And from there, you can see the AAST liver injury scale. Really easy to interact with and probe for a little bit more information off of this. So you could pull out the scale based on the information within the report, or specifically what you already have put in there. How's this going to be categorized? Where does this fall within that AAST liver injury scale? Which is great because it's able to leverage artificial intelligence to identify what information is most appropriate to pull out and then put that directly into the interface. Now, the really exciting part is being able to then also correlate that with the information from RSNA and RSNA Ventures directly embedded into that point of care. So actually seeing the markings, if there's relevant Hounsfield units of consideration, all that kind of stuff directly within the view of the radiologist. So really not having a divorced or segmented workflow where you're doing a lot of interactions, but instead a really finely tuned and tailored workflow for the radiologists as they're going through this. So one thing that's been developing for a long time, a century, one could argue, when it comes to, relevant information in the medical community. But in particular, over the past couple decades, is just the overwhelming amount of information that's out there. New research studies, new journal articles, all the different, parts the radiologist has to somehow figure out how to interact with, while they're also trying to produce more RVUs than ever. Interacting with these, and on top of that, deliver stellar patient care, fast reads, accurate interpretations, for the other physicians, and now on top of that, having direct to patient facing information, given that they're seeing the radiology reports, sometimes before their physicians even contact them. So, Dr. Davis, I'm curious from your perspective, what value do you see having access to this kind of information directly inside the workflow? And, why was Yale interested in becoming an early adopter?
Yeah, I'm actually really excited about this type of workflow. I think Adam and Joe said it pretty well earlier. One of our jobs is to make the radiologist happy, and the way that we do that is by making sure that they have the information that they need when they need it. And I still look up information online all the time, looking through journals like radiographics, like AJNR, multiple times a day when we come across something that we want to say we've referenced. We spend a lot of time on the internet doing those searches, and so having a tool like this directly embedded within the platform that also is trustworthy is extremely important. And so we're excited at Yale about these types of technologies because we want to be on the front side of where these tools are going. And so I'm really excited about this direction.
Yeah, I think you use the word trust there, and I think that's a real opportunity the AI has to build out. Like, how can you trust what you're interacting with? And I look at the delivery of information like the RSNA journal articles as really helping to engender that trust and seamlessly enable it. Joe, from the community practice perspective, how have you discussed this with your radiologists? What's grabbing their interest on it?
Yeah, I mean, so for us, to your point, Dimitri, you spoke to the amount of journal entries and white papers and all the available information and significant, important information to the radiologist. We've spent years in trying to develop, whether it's SharePoint or shared folders, to make this documentation available to our physicians. And if their hair's not on fire and they can spend the time to go click on those resources and contribute into their report, they would do it. But again, we've just seen an explosion of volume and acuity and sensitivity there, and staffing. A radiologist is not able to keep up. We pay close attention every year to MGMA and AGMA, all the data on median productivity and median comp, and you just watch those median RVUs or 75th percentile. They go up a couple few hundred, 1,000 RVUs per MD annually, and the only way to keep up with it is to be more efficient and trying to balance it with the quality. Obviously, all of our referring clinicians in the area have high expectations on the quality of the reports that we put out. So yeah, we're really excited about this. We've had opportunities for physicians to access this information, but it's not embedded in their PACS or their voice recognition product. So it was an easy sell to our radiologists here when they saw this embedded, and just like Dr. Davis said, from a trusted resource. So yeah, we're really excited and think this is going to be a great efficiency gain while still maintaining high quality and transparency to the referring MDs that can also, reference those articles and learn a little bit about why the radiologist has, said what they've said or made the recommendations that they've made.
Dr. Flanders, I know you're wearing two hats here. So, from the RSNA perspective, why now? Why not 5 years ago, 10 years ago? Like, what's different about, this moment in time?
Well, it's funny that you should mention why not 5 years ago. I mean, the genesis of this actually came even more than 5 years ago, and it was really about because we already know RSNA has this really excellent content, And we realize also that radiologists now, of course, everybody realizes they don't have enough time to actually do formal lookups. I mean, everybody goes to a web browser, looks something up on Google. It may take them to a full article. No one has time to digest that information, let alone the fact that, if there's small snippets of information out there, as was already brought up, how do we know the veracity of that information? Do we trust it? Is it good quality? Is it something I can actually transfer that knowledge into my report and feel like I've actually given, I actually passed on good, relevant, information to begin with. But years ago, we actually wondered, with all of the information technology was out here, and this actually came up long before LLMs were around or whatever else. We were thinking, wouldn't it be great if an EMR could pass a certain amount of information into some magical product where we could digest it and then deliver just relevant RSNA content back to the user that was just enough to get you to move on to your next step, realizing a lot of radiologists want to enhance their reports with information like a classification scheme that maybe they don't remember, or they're out of their comfort zone and they're basically delving into something they don't normally read, and they would normally call someone up to take a look at it. That's the whole idea about this is your companion. This is sitting on your shoulder saying, don't worry, I got you covered here, and anticipating your needs. I think, to me, one of the things that I think is phenomenal about where this product could go is, if it follows along the logic of what the radiologist is doing while they're dictating a case, it it will anticipate what your next needs are. Like you said, I think I see a traumatic lesion in the liver. The next thing you know, would you like to see the classification system for this? Would you like to see other examples of that, if in case you're unsure if this is a traumatic injury? Following along with what you're doing, but not taking up much of your time, just enough to help supplement your process. So, but back in the day, there wasn't good enough technology to allow this to happen. Really, the secret sauce is the middleware, and also being able to uh, reconsume the content, or basically repackage RSNA content so we could deliver just the right nuggets of information. Not deliver a graph or something like that is not completely irrelevant out of an article, but something that you're actually probably going to use.
Yeah. Yeah, I think using AI for integration into the point of care is,
Yeah.
the important part. AI is, of course, important, but it's really that workflow and that integration that can ultimately lead to, cognitive load reduction. And
Yeah.
I think that's an evolution I've seen in the discussion around burnout, specifically in radiology, is the, cognitive load and the context switching, that goes along with so much of the radiologist's job. So, Dr. Davis, I know you're very focused on, like, the post-implementation process and, making sure that it's delivering the value. What are you thinking in terms of that cognitive load? Like, how can you measure it? How are you thinking about approaching that with your radiologists?
Yeah, I think it's quite difficult to directly measure cognitive load because it really is about how your radiologists are feeling on a certain day. And if they feel like we've implemented the types of tools that they actually ask for and actually need, that is a huge cognitive load decrease already. When it comes to generative AI tools like RadAI, the impressions tool, I think, has done wonders in the market. And I think it's probably one of the only tools that you can definitively say, hey, this has some sort of impact on cognitive load. And we've heard our radiologists say that for complex reports, we say many, many, many things within a report, and to be able to summarize that into a finding, it just feels better at the end of the day when I can review a finding and edit it rather than having to regurgitate what I just said within a finding section in some way. And so, it's very difficult for us to measure it, but the way that we try to do it is through surveys. And so we'll intermittently send out surveys every couple of years that will say, what do you think about these tools? Are they actually helping you? If they went away, would you be sad about it or would you be happy about it? And I think that that's the way that we start to understand if these tools are actually impactful for the radiologist or not.
Great point. I was at a Malone Institute meeting in Baltimore, and Andrew Menard, the executive director of radiology at Johns Hopkins, said after they implemented a tool, he asked the radiologist, "Do you sleep better at night?" And, and the answer was overwhelmingly yes. So they actually, went forward with that tool. I think, particularly when it comes to this return on investment type, conversation, it does need to focus on quantitative, but there is also a significant qualitative opportunity there, that does impact the quantitative side. So, Joe, from a, community perspective, I know that finding subspecialized radiologists can be a challenge, just given the current market and the pressures. How do you think tools like this will be able to, help overcome some of those challenges, augment the radiologists at the point of care?
Yeah, so I mean, we're a multi-specialty radiology group, but if I would love to tell you 100% of our studies are read by a specialist, it's just not the case, right? After hours, weekends. So I see this being a big enhancement for any of our rads if they're kind of leaning on the edge of that lane in comfort. So there's that. We see. I'm looking forward to kind of measuring the impact of this too, right? What's our addendum rates look like? Are we seeing fewer addendums, fewer callbacks from specialized, surgeons and other referring clinicians of ours, lowering that addendum rate? Certainly, we also have a what we call rad reach, where physicians can call into our practice and we have operators that connect them with a specialist in our group. We measure those phone calls, we measure all the incoming calls, we measure the content of those calls. What are they calling for? So we'll continue to take a look at that as well and see, are we really having a big impact on our ordering clinicians around the area, fewer questions, fewer requests for addendum, fewer requests for clarity, and certainly more standardization of our reporting. We have the goal of standardized reporting within our RAD-AI reporting, and I think this will help us balance that and having folks stay within our dictation standards. So yeah, we're looking for a lot of that, and just that consistency and adherence to our reporting, so that everybody know you're getting the same report from ARA health specialists every time, regardless of the radiologist that read it.
That's great. Yeah. Dr. Flanders, when I think about Jefferson Health, there's been significant expansion over the years, oftentimes through acquisition. How do you view tools, like this diagnostic support companion in terms of variation of care, of access, of understanding across the different domains? Do you think there's opportunities for this to, help normalize that?
Oh yeah, no, it's a great question because what's interesting, it's almost like we have a great experimental test bed because we have an academic core and then we've got multiple community practices and we're all in the same infrastructure. And I'm a neuroradiologist, but I like to think all of our community radiologists are a lot smarter than I am just because they're fearless. They'll read everything and they feel very good with it. They're all very well trained, but I wouldn't go near most of that stuff. But if it came to a point where I had to go read something outside of my narrow window, if I had a tool, because normally if I had to do that, I would find somebody to sit right with me and go over the case with me. To me, building a tool like this is akin to having. That's why we're calling it a companion, of course. Yeah, I've got somebody with me that's got my back who will take me through the case. I may have enough cognitive ability to make a finding, but I might not be able to understand what it means and what the ramifications are. A tool like this could actually take me through the thought process and make me feel more comfortable about it. So yeah, I kind of agree it would be helpful to everybody. It's not the kind of thing where you'd say, well, the academic core doesn't need something like this. Absolutely not, because everyone in academia is always looking up stuff as well. We want to know more information, even in our own space that we feel comfortable in. So, to me, having it where I can actually pull that kind of information and not waste a whole lot of time doing it and just get the nuggets that I need is phenomenal. So, yeah, no more web browsing for me.
Dr. Davis, Yale's a similar environment, academic core, plus community. What are your thoughts, on that side?
I completely agree with Dr. Flanders. It's interesting to have these conversations as we're trying to implement these types of tools where we have had the conversations with our academic core where they're like, we don't need that. We're the experts in this. And I go, but remember that we also have a group of community radiologists and a group of ED academic radiologists who read everything, every part of the body. And so these types of tools would, as a companion, are actually very helpful across the entire suite. I think I think that the way that my career has evolved, where I read emergency imaging as well as neuroimaging, really helps me to be able to see kind of beyond that core read versus generalist read conversation. We've actually deployed, we actually decided to deploy the impressions tool because our community group said that they wanted an impressions generator tool, and our academic group has greatly benefited from that. And we're trying that model again with the reporting tool, and that's going to evolve over time. But in general, I think overall, having this companion is going to ease our search. I have a netter sitting next to me on my workstation right here because I'm still opening books on a day-to-day basis, and so
Wow.
I'm a little old school in that regard, but so I think that it would be very useful to have these point-click solutions that would decrease that time.
Absolutely. We actually have a question from the audience around the initial deployment focus of these tools. It says, will the initial deployment focus on specific subspecialty areas or types of cases? Example, complex, rare, or high volume studies. Or will it be a broad release across all radiology practice areas? So that's actually a very good question. And the panel's not prepped for this. So how do you think we should focus this? Because this is all emerging right now, and this is the opportunity to kind of shape how we mutually go to market with RSNA Ventures on this. Joe, do you think like one specialty in deep, or do you think like broad, good load to cover the average interaction?
Well, if I have one specialty, I'm going to hear it from the other specialties that don't have it, right? And so obviously this one catches me a bit off guard. I didn't know if the rollout was going to be, and of course, right? We don't really know yet what your exact rollout was going to be. It was going to be clinical indications that kind of drive this and kind of cross over, whether it's different modalities. But yeah, no, I think to hit the heavy hitters, I'm sure there's smarter radiologists, people a lot smarter than I am, to decide where the focus should be. Selfishly, I would love to have this be impactful for all of my subspecialty radiologists that feel like, okay, this is coming and it's developing and this is helping me here. And, you're going to get a ton of communications like, when will this be available? And when can we expect to see something on lung, or when can we expect to see more on liver? They're gonna beat you over the head with ideas on how to continue to build this up. It's going to happen quickly because the expectation is going to be there. I see it being very helpful to them. Not a radiologist, but I just seeing what their workflow is and how much work is being done. The inability to go outside of the PAC system or the voice recognition system to get what they want and to try to find it, is just it's not sustainable.
No, agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It,
Dr.
it,
Feinberg? Okay.
well, I was just going to say, Demetria, there's been a lot of discussion in the background, and you probably know more of the details than I do, but there's a strategy on how they want to populate the starter set and then supplement the starter set for just to address that particular question, so that they're not just focusing on abdominal imaging and forgetting everything else, or forgetting pediatrics, because I see somebody put a question in about including pediatrics. Yeah, pediatrics will be part of it as well. But they're really trying to build a foundation that kind of covers a relatively broad space so that people can kind of see the benefit of it, and then supplement it strategically over time, because they can't just take a great radiographics article and stuff it into some kind of digester for Rad AI. It takes a lot of work to actually make, not only to decompose an article effectively, but then also test to make sure that you're delivering the right content based on all the cues. So that process is getting iteratively faster and faster from what I understand, which is great. So I would imagine as content goes in, it's going to accelerate, not go slower.
Yeah, I mean the initial goal is hundreds, the long-term goals hundreds of thousands, right? So like because there's so
Yeah,
many different conditions
yeah,
and such a
right.
robust library.
Yeah, I mean, there's like 17,000 conditions and gamuts or whatever else. No, they don't want to solve the long tail problem. They want to kind of solve the big peak around the Gaussian curve if they can, and not worry about the stuff way out at the periphery. So yeah, not really rare diseases, I think is probably would not be the focus right away.
Yeah, so Dr. Davis, when I think about Yale, the innovative, like y'all adopted AI a decade ago in the radiology department. You have this down to a science, literally like an implementation science, from what I've, seen and experienced across multiple orgs. Um, what's your thoughts on how to, make sure that it's broad enough to, gain adoption, yet deep enough to, then gain further trust and interaction with the solution?
Yeah, I think it's a great question about how to really do this because we want our radiologists to be excited about it. So we need it to be broad enough that enough radiologists will actually interact with it and say that yes, this is a useful tool. And then it can go deeper to say this is a really good tool for this subspecialty. And as everybody was talking, I was thinking, which types of imaging studies do most of our radiologists touch? Like, what's the broadest types of studies that you touch? And for us, there's a lot of neuro across our health system. There's a lot of neuro read in our community practices. There's a lot of neuro read by our subspecialty neuroradiologists, and there's a lot of neuro read by our emergency radiologists. And so that's a real broad spectrum with a high volume. And so if we started to have content that was focused towards that, more and more of our staff will actually see it and hopefully they will say, hey, this is a great product. How come we don't have it in body? How come we don't have it in chest? And then that will help expand it out further. So if I was thinking about the strategy, and I know Dr. Flanders has gone real deep into this, so I'm not going to jumpstart anything that RSNA Ventures has said, but I would think about it around volume and swath of radiologists. What I'm most going to see at the highest volume.
Yep. Now, Yale and ARA are both early adopters of this solution, and as we all know, early adopters are learning opportunities for both sides. What excites you about having early access to this? Like why did you put your hands up as being interested in being able to roll this out?
I mean, for us, we like to have a say in the way that things impact us. And I think by being early adopters, we actually we get your ear. We get the ear of the vendor and we help develop the tool. And that's one thing that really excites me. Being an early adopter is a struggle at times because it's a change management process. And there are going to be people that love it. There are going to be people that hate it. And there's going to be a lot of people in the middle. And if you know radiologists, you're going to get a lot of people in the middle who neither love nor hate. And so, it's going to be a transition for us, but I'm so excited because I just in the engagements that we've had so far, I know that, RadAI is listening to us as they think about the build of this product going forward. And we're also an educational institution. And so this allows our residents to have kind of that forefront impact as well as we start to roll it out across our more academic sites.
Hmm. Joe?
Yeah, ARA Health here. We've been forward thinking and really interested in the innovation of these products. We didn't join this to be passive observers. Certainly that so the opportunity there for us to be involved. To help shape this, obviously we have other artificial intelligence tools that we utilize daily to gain some help for our radiologists in balancing quality and volumes. We want to be part of how AI integrates into our workflow, just not be at the mercy of how other people might think it needs to be integrated in. And we you know, being early, it does allow us to hopefully contribute in solving what our real world problems are here in Western North Carolina, which I'm sure we share with other radiology groups across the nation. So yeah, we're really excited to be part of this and help shape this. And you know, I know I can guarantee you there'll be a lot of feedback on what everybody thinks the next best step should be, and that's why we appreciate a partnership like this with Rad AI and RSNA Ventures.
Agreed. Good call out. Um, when I think about the radiology industry as a whole, there were some significant changes over the past 30 years or so. PACS being the first fully digital department back in the 90s, and then very early adoption of speech recognition and like reporting solutions. So much so that they ended up becoming their own thing, unlike general medicine that reads directly into the EHR. Um, I'm I've known radiologists for a while, and there's oftentimes a resistance to change. And I understand why. In my view, radiology is a performance sport. You're, optimizing and tweaking so that you can have, that really optimal delivery. But it feels different right now. Everybody's really, excited and looking for ways to change what they did in the past. Approach from not just like do what we did in the past a little bit better, but completely transform the workflow. Dr. Flanders, from your perspective, why? Like, why is that happening today? What's different about now?
Well, I mean, I don't want to get too philosophical about it or whatever else. I mean, part of it is that I think we're pretty much immersed in technology right now, and everybody's kind of used to it. And even people who are mid-career kind of grew up with technology. As the old person in the room here, I grew up with film and I grew up with transcriptionists, and I was around and instrumental in the transition to filmless and also transition into speech recognition. And you're right, it was very painful for a lot of old timers that were used to doing things a certain way. Part of it, I think, a big part of it also had to do with the fact of just volume. Getting used to something. Do you have enough time to get used to a brand new interface, learning how to do things completely differently than the way you were trained to begin with? These days, it's a lot easier to do because everybody is trained on these technologies. Nobody's going from film to PACS anymore. Um, but I think the other reason why people are so excited, if our volumes were not up 300 plus percent compared to 10 years ago, people might not care as much. But people want to do a really good job and they still want to be happy in their work. And they're really feeling the pressure now. So they're looking to any technology at all that allow them to do their job as well or better. And, as Dr. Davis pointed out, where their happiness is still important because we don't want to keep losing radiologists to early retirement because they can't handle it anymore. So I think the environment is very different right now than it was during like when PACS and speech first transitioned. We had a lot more time on our hands to learn that stuff.
Dr. Davis, Joe, anything to add?
Yeah, I think what Dr. Flanders said is absolutely right. We're immersed in technology in every piece of our day. I mean, look at us right now. We're sitting in a technology platform that wasn't popular 5 years ago, and now we use it every single day. And every day, our radiologists come up to us and they say, "My phone does X, Y, and Z. How come our platforms can't do that?" And it's because historically in medicine, we've been slower to adopt technology at the pace that outside of healthcare is typically adopted because you don't have as much regulation and as much control and as much hesitation because we're dealing with actual patients and actual lives. So there's a balance that you have to have there. But when somebody who is born in 2000 comes up to us and says, "Hey, look, my phone does all these cool things, and then I'm stagnated when I get to work," that's hard to face. And so I do think that there is a shift for us to move in that direction a bit more.
It's funny you mentioned the phone. A unexpected feedback at RSNA was that it would be valuable to have access to this on the phone. And in my experience in radiology in particular, a phone has always been taboo. Like you don't, the radiologist, the diagnostic workstation, if it's a phone app, it's not for them. But I feel like the modern approach, everybody's using their phone for everything. So you're kind of used to pulling that out and having access to a tool that can still be integrated, because that's part of the thing with web-based technologies. You can, cross domains, cross devices, and still have, context between the two. What are the thoughts from the panel on, potentially accessing something like this, probably different on a phone, for radiologists? Joe, you didn't speak recently, so I'm going to you first.
Okay. Well, I mean, I have two teenage daughters, so everything is done on a phone. I personally I can't imagine it. But what I'll, just kind of even on the heels of the last question, and I think you've got to be moving forward, and as a private practice radiology group trying to recruit the best of the best and retain physicians. We're very sensitive to physicians coming out of training, and they're training in these places and they have artificial intelligence available to them. They have other technologies, or maybe they're reading, films on their phone. We have to be able to accommodate that as well. So we're not static. We'll move with the times. And in fact, this is a great opportunity for us to be out in front of it and maybe deliver something that physicians coming in out of training or coming in from another group across the country haven't seen before, but see this as a benefit in a forward-thinking radiology group. We cannot remain static. So, if this turns into something where, hey, this is available on the phone, and I'll speak for my radiologists. I don't know that any of them here would find that to be like something they would ever use, but I don't know if the physician that we're recruiting today that isn't starting until 2028, they feel like I need this available on my phone. I had it available here. Why don't you have it in Asheville? So anyway, we don't scoff at anything. Maybe it's not for me. I can't imagine that, but if that's what folks want and the tech can deliver it and it doesn't compromise patient care or quality, so be it. They can look at their phone. They can look at a book next to their PC. I doesn't make any difference to me.
A phone is the new book, right?
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Dr. Davis, anything to add?
Well, the phone might be a leap to something else. So as we keep thinking, where is this technology going next? Virtual reality headsets have come a long way in the last year or two. And I've had several radiologists come up to us and say, hey, how come we can't use a VR headset, which has much better spatial resolution than my barcode monitor? And I can do that laying flat in my bed, I guess, and read some films. Well, that's actually a phone, and an application. That's a phone application in most of those cases. So I think that sometimes you have to think like, well, what's going to be 10 years from now or 15 years from now, and right now the phone is centralized in all those technologies.
Yeah, I saw a demonstration of the Apple Vision Pro at the Michigan Avenue store during RSNA, with, I believe it was Visage integrated from a viewer
Mhm.
perspective, and enabling, because again, like we're in a new world. These are, true web-based scalable applications. So, we were delivering our reporting solution integrated in that workflow. So, it's really impactful to consider changing. Again, these are the types of changes that I think we're going to go through, where everything might change, and literal transformation across the industry. Which actually takes me to a topic that was brought up in the Discovery Theater session that Dr. Flanders, Joe, and I had at RSNA this past year. The patient-facing side of this, like, given that the radiology report is now instantly available and it like pops up in my chart, if an Epic or Message Center with Oracle, for the patients, what opportunity do we potentially see? What's the thoughts around, providing a bit more patient-friendly information, from these types of data sources? Dr. Flanders?
Oh, okay. I didn't know if I was first. Well, to me, that there are all kinds of great opportunities, I think, for this because you know, while I think the fact that we have removed information blocking from patients so that they can see everything in their record, including all of their images, we have not made any of that information consumable for them. And if anything, we've made it more frightening because now we inundate them with all this terminology and these pictures that may or may not mean anything. In fact, we've had discussions here internally with our AI governance group. You know, many AI tools return a AI result and they append it to an imaging study. And when a patient sees it, they don't know what that means. There's disclaimers on the bottom. They don't know what that means. It says this is not for diagnostic purposes only. Oh, by the way, you have a aneurysm. You know, if you were a patient, can you imagine? You're an 83-year-old grandmother. You're like, my God, what does this all mean? So to me, there's huge opportunities to be able to address. This is the same stuff that all the primary care people are focusing on. Can we create good chatbots with enough boundaries, enough guardrails around it, so that they can actually act autonomously to actually answer questions for patients in the context of their own studies? So, like Stanford developed this thing called RAD-GPT, which I think is phenomenal. Basically a patient can upload their report, it will highlight all the keywords, and then it will prompt them with questions. Instead of them saying, what does my report mean? It'll say, oh, you have a lumbar disc herniation. Do you want to know what that means? And, and then it has more detailed questions. If you ask a question, it asks follow-up questions of you. Would you like to know more about this or more about this? But you can see how this would be incredibly comforting to a patient to be able to provide something at their level so that they could get a lot of these questions answered for themselves, and so that they don't have to bother the primary care physician or even call the radiologist. And, for us, it's kind of a treat to talk to patients because they don't necessarily talk to us all that often. To me, it's kind of fun to explain the report to the patient, and they're always very grateful to do it. But could you imagine if we could do something like that at scale, where you could even show them or even show them on their pictures here's the abnormality. This is what it really means, and get enough follow-up questions. And then when you reach the guardrail saying those are the kinds of things you need to talk to your primary care doctor about. So yeah, to me, the sky's the limit for that.
No, great. I think that's really exciting. I'm a member of a number of patient focus groups and stuff like that. And I've been hearing more and more about the radiologist joining the consultations with the multi-specialty teams, like physically, or being, called directly by the patient themselves when they see a report. So I think that's, a really exciting potential, evolution of this. And, Dr. Davis, thinking about where all this is going, like as this landscape evolves, what are the criteria you're using on how to make these decisions and what to move forward with, how to integrate, how to implement?
Yeah, I mean, I think someone mentioned it earlier, but a lot of these tools are kind of out of the box. Like the patients drop their reports into large language models every day and ask them questions constantly. And so a lot of the questions that we're starting to get back to our practice is, the AI tool said it was this, and can you verify XYZ information? When it comes to choosing the right tools for a practice, I think it's all very practice dependent. And I think that everybody has different needs and different levels of capacity as to what to implement. And we talk about this a lot, especially on the post-implementation side, is how am I actually going to guard these tools after they're implemented? Because traditionally within IT, you put something in and it works and it just keeps working. And one day it breaks and you call the vendor and you ask them to fix it, right? And now with large language models, we have to be, or with any AI tool, we have to be very cognizant as the radiologist of, is this actually working or is it not? Is there something going on? Is it flagging patients that it shouldn't flag? Are we sending information to patients that we shouldn't be sending? So we have to make sure that we have a lot of guardrails around who sees what and who makes the ultimate decision for this. So in our practice, when we talk about AI, we have the ultimate responsibility for the way that we care for our patient. I have the ultimate responsibility when I'm reading a case, the way that I care for a patient. So even though I'm leveraging some of these tools, at the end of the day, it's my responsibility to put that report out and communicate those findings to the clinician and to the patient. And so that's kind of the guiding light or the guiding principle that we try to use in our practice as we decide which tools are gonna fit into that going forward and how we're going to be able to manage that going forward.
That's great. If you look at a lot of the current dialogue and action happening around like the regulatory landscape, FDA, ONC, ASTP, different relevant agencies associated with this. I'm seeing an increased focus on governance, transparency, and provenance. Really as three key areas, plus post-market surveillance, of course. From a governance structure, Joe, for implementing these types of AI solutions, how do you tackle that? How do you make sure that they're appropriately transparent, that they have clear linkage back to trusted information, and pieces like that?
Yeah, so we're a committee-driven group. So we do have a tech committee. Obviously, the tech committee has been taking on a lot of our artificial intelligence applications since introducing our first AI algorithm in. We were a little bit surprised not to get some back-end reporting and a little bit more transparency on what the tool is doing. We knew click rates, we knew feedback rates, but I mean, I'm very glad to see now that's being heard. It was interesting at RSNA to see a lot of the AI vendors that we work with, with this transparency now on their data and access to that data. So yeah, we do monitor within our tech committee. We also monitor it with our quality committee. We're sensitive to what kind of AI. I will say we're predominantly using artificial intelligence tools today that are, dealing with triage, patient triage, those incidental pulmonary embolisms and other things like that. Some of the bogeys out there. We don't use any. We obviously use Rad AI for reporting and impressions. Obviously, it's got eyes on it that radiologist sees what the impression was. The accuracy is terrific, and we appreciate that. And then we use other useful tools to, whether it's vessel suppression, things like that. So, but we do keep a lens on it. Some of that is a little easier to manage. Some of the other stuff that's out there right now, we haven't moved into. We're making a foray into some of these other AI tools that are available. But that's a big lift for a private practice radiology group like ours to suddenly be governing whether or not the AI tool is working accurately or not, and what all this data really means. So, but yeah, we're using it as a tool to help supplement our radiologists here internally, and that's where we're living right now until we're better able to handle some of the more advanced work algorithms that are out there.
Yep. Yeah, I look at this as one of the real key opportunities is that provenance side, like being able to directly link this back to the relevant RSNA journal article, through the RSNA Ventures partnership. Dr. Davis, how do you see that playing into like the governance and assessment process that y'all have?
And so we have kind of a two-tiered process. One is at the health system level, where all of our AI tools at this point flow through a pretty stringent governance process. So they go through a legal review, they go through a regulatory review, a data review, a security review, and it takes quite a bit of time. But I always think about how we're actually lucky to have the resources to actually do that, because of the size of our institution, and the lens that our institution has around artificial intelligence right now. Right now, the regulatory landscape to me looks like more deregulation than more regulation. And so I think, like, as people who are providing the service as the end users for these products, my fear is that a lot of that regulation is getting pushed down to the practices, and the practices don't necessarily always have the resources to do that post-implementation governance in a robust way. And so I hope that by having these conversations and having these connections with vendors like Rad AI and like RSNA Ventures, RSNA kind of takes the lead on developing, like, what does it look like for practices across the US to actually have some sort of governance protocols within their systems. Because, while Yale is a massive system with massive resources around governance and legal and security reviews, a smaller practice doesn't have that framework. And so how do we do that as a nation, as opposed to as people with resources versus not?
Absolutely. Dr. Flanders, anything to add?
Um, well, Yeah, I don't want to be repetitive, but yeah, we also have, and I'm kind of proud of the fact that our organization, as large as it's gotten relatively quickly, stood up a AI governance group that is very inclusive. There is participation from all of the divisions in our organization. It does create a lot of bureaucracy. The days of slipping in an AI tool for a 90-day trial, those days are done. Nothing gets in the door anymore without a high level of scrutiny. But I think, the point that Dr. Davis brought up is really important because now that these tools have proliferated, they're not, there's not 100% consumption of AI tools across the board. Obviously, it's still relatively low, but the one thing that is not clear and not easy to do is to monitor performance of these tools with time and see. There's one thing to be able to figure out whether or not they bring value to an organization. It's another matter to be able to measure whether or not there's value. It's easy enough if you can bill for something. That's easy to calculate. But is it based on, as Dr. Davis said, taking before and after we deploy an AI tool, are our radiologists happier? Okay, that might be one way, and might be kind of soft and fluffy, but it may be something that has some bite to it if you're not losing radiologists. But right now it's very difficult, and there's actually some government mandates that say that you're required as an organization, no matter how big you are. Section 1557 says you are obliged to determine whether any clinical decision support tool, including AI tools, have bias inherent to them. And it's not on the vendors, it's on the user. So you can imagine if you're a 100-bed hospital with a very small IT staff, how are you going to measure any of that stuff and measure that in some meaningful way? So it is the Wild West from that standpoint. I think it's a big challenge for all of us.
I would contend, the responsibility does ultimately sit with the, healthcare
Yeah.
institute, but as a vendor supplying these solutions, you must deliver that information. It's not a nice to have, it's a must have, from a
Yeah.
relationship perspective. So we've got about 3 minutes left. If there's any audience questions, please put them in. I've been salting a couple in as we've been talking. A few of us have referenced. But while we're waiting for some of those questions, Dr. Flanders, I know this is like the first project out of RSNA Ventures, and we were very excited to be able to deliver this new tool directly integrated into our RadAI reporting solution, so the radiologists can get it in the point of care. What other areas are y'all thinking about? Like, where are you thinking about taking, the overall Ventures organization?
Well, it remains to be seen right now. The one thing that was really great when we announced just the birth of RSNA Ventures is that we got a lot of inquiries, hundreds of inquiries, ranging from, "Hey, I've got a startup company. Can you write me a check?" to all kinds of things. Can we work together on something or whatever else? So right now, I think the group is reviewing those and having follow-up meetings with a number of those other inquiries to see if there's something similar that kind of falls into the mission of RSNA and the whole reason for why we launched RSNA Ventures, which was to make life better for our members and for radiology in general and our patients. So, but it's exciting. So stay tuned. There'll probably be, by maybe next RSNA, we might be talking about something else that we're also working on in addition to working with you.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. So there's one question. What subscriptions do we need to have access to this material in the live reading environment? So right now, this is an early adopter situation. Yale and ARA will be, two of the earliest to have access to it. If there's interest, we would love to talk with you. We'll send out a follow-up email with some more information on that. But it's going to be available integrated directly into our reporting solution as an add-on piece. So I think we're at just about time. And Dr. Davis, Joe, Dr. Flanders, really appreciate the conversation today. I know I enjoyed it. I hope the audience did as well. So thank you to the audience for your time this morning, this afternoon, depending on your time zone, and look forward to further conversations.